I would ask that, but there's no one in the chat. I've always said, starting right now, I don't know what just happened. I don't know why it just happened, which is honestly a completely acceptable reaction to me. They really love nothing more than just cupping those balls and swallowing all of it. Excuse me while I die a second. What you're seeing, ladies and gentlemen, is a goddamn bribe on an international scale. But you still have states in the South that think education is a four-letter word. There's a difference between playing with yourself and playing by yourself.
Hard Rock Lunchbox.
Yes. Greetings and salutations, and welcome to another episode of Hard Rock Lunchbox. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, welcome to the Top 20 on Strangerhood TV. It is arguably spring outside. It is March 27th, 2025, year of our Lord. Thank you, Louis C.K., for that insight. And how is everybody doing today? I would ask that, but there's no one in the chat, so that's okay. There's a difference between playing with yourself and playing by yourself, I've always said, starting right now, so that's where we're at. Although, to be fair, I had some difficulty logging into the chat myself, so maybe some others are doing it. And honestly, maybe I'm just Schrodinger's catting it right now. Maybe I'm not even in the chat and I'm just in some quantum parallel universe. I mean, given the infinite amount of options, the other universes seems probably pretty good at this moment in time. But whether here or just completely alone, isolated, I still have new music for probably me and for anybody else that is listening to the replay and all that other stuff. I'm sorry if I seem a bit off my game. I'm definitely a little behind schedule. For whatever reason, one of the songs I wanted to literally start the show with did not transfer over to this computer, so I had to race over all the way over there, all 5 feet of it, and figure out what happened. But don't worry, fear not. I have figured out what has happened, and I have rectified that situation. But here we are again, time for another Hard Rock Lunchbox. I did have every good intention today about talking about something that I thought was really important going on in the world of politics, specifically what is going on with law firms in this country and I don't even know how better to sort of say it other than the blatant strong-arming and extorting of a historically democratic-leaning law firm that President Trump threatened to sort of remove their security clearance so they couldn't represent high-level Democrats, right? Basically just attacking their ability to do business. And in exchange for I think it was like $40 million or something worth of legal services that this company offered up to the Trump administration, that he decided to back down on that threat. Now, that's extortion like black letter. And I did want to talk about that a little bit more because there was another article to follow that said leading law firms, especially in the D.C. Beltway, are now refusing to take on democratic causes, not because they don't believe in it, but because their business could be destroyed by the President of the United States and his administration. And as many red flags as I do like to throw up about what's going on in the world right now, specifically our country, like that is another one, but that is a big one because if you've been paying any attention at all, it really has been about all about the courts kind of standing up to what's going on. And of course, MAGA is just losing their mind talking about radical and activist judges. But these are the same assholes that really put together over 60 lawsuits about election, denying, in the 2020 election. And it's absolutely unbelievable to me. And the absolute twat of a press secretary, and I am not a huge fan of press secretaries. I mean, there were a couple over the years. Like, I thought Jen Psaki was really good, but still to date, I think the best press secretary I've ever seen was Baghdad Bob during the Iraq War, because that guy was one of the funniest things I've ever seen on TV. But this Levitt chick, she is just a whole new level of absolutely disgusting. I mean, just some of the stuff that she's been, like, kind of saying about this, but, you know, again, that's what I wanted to talk about. I did not do the work. I had a kind of a derailing morning, and I just could not get myself to finish that stuff and get the music, and I figured the music is always more important than anything I ever have to say. So we can just continue on with some light housekeeping, because everybody likes that. So this week on the Top 20, which is out as of midnight 0001 this morning, and if you're watching and liking that and sharing and subscribing, I really, really do appreciate that. I've had some of the videos recently actually spike to north of 100 plus views, which I think was really interesting. I mean, the first one of which was the one where I talk about, like, mental health. I think it was called Here's to Your Mental Health, and it was a really, in my opinion, an important share from somebody that has gone through a lot of these things and is empathetic to both sides of that equation. Just some reassurances for those that are in it, but also reassurances for those that have to stand by and watch it, because sometimes that can be very much harder, and it takes a lot more resolute constitution to be able to handle that. Like, as dumb as it sounds, there is a safety in being the one, or a smallness, the very 3-foot world in the space where you're the one that is falling apart, and then the world becomes very large for the people that have to watch you go through that. So that was a big episode. I know I shared it specifically like a handful of times to people who I thought needed it, but also, like, I know I had shared it with Jimmy to just sort of check kind of what I was saying, because I didn't want to overstep, and Jimmy's always a good sounding board for me, and he gave me some feedback on it. But because of that, it has been shared a bunch of times and is now probably approaching like 200 views, which is seems like a lame number for anybody that would be like on YouTube, but like somebody that's not actively trying to be an influencer like me, like, it's a big deal. But that has led to further spikes in other episodes, which I find interesting, because I always feel like stats. But there's a new one out. There's no real reason to think anybody's going to care or watch it, but it is out. It's called Becoming Part of the Sandbox, and that is more about kind of our local area, and it points to specifically, like, my over consistent belief in teams and the whole being greater than its parts, which is something that I've always believed in. I've been able to accomplish very little in my life just on my own, even though it seems, and I used to say that, like, I can make things happen with the sheer force of my will. The reality is, without a team or groups of teams to either inspire me or motivate me or to be there to help me get things across the finish line, there is no way I would have accomplished almost any of the things I've ever accomplished in my life. So that is why I believe in teams. Also, as somebody that was basically just discarded early on, like, that became my reach to find something to belong to, because sometimes that's really all you can do. Like, it's really all that's left, and it's important to cling to those things, and I learned that so early that it became a very big staple of the person that I am, and that's just kind of what it is. Also, I do talk about musk being a fragrance, and also how actually the SpaceX astronaut program worked. It wasn't Elon that went to go get our NASA astronauts. It was SpaceX, the company he owns. But don't worry, the New York Times reported that SpaceX is standing to to be awarded billions with a B dollars in contracts under the Trump administration. So if you think he did that out of the goodness of his heart, you're either stupid, a complete fool and buffoon, or you're just ignoring the obvious, which the latter seems to be what's going on more and more these days. So feel free to check that out. A bunch of stuff going on Bacon's My Podcast, including Unforgettable Jukebox Classics, which, as somebody that used to go to diners in high school, like, the jukebox was almost as important as the cheese fries and the cheeseburger deluxe. I did say almost. But yeah, lots of fun in jukeboxes and stuff. I know at one point, I think G. Davy had a song floating around in one of the jukeboxes, and I tried to get that again for Revel 9, but as far as I'm aware, so it never happened. So if you ever see Revel 9 in a jukebox, please text or message me immediately, because I would be a huge fan of that. Yeah, I don't really feel like talking about any of this other stuff. We got a show coming up. That's cool. End of Saul's coming out on the 18th of April. That'll be cool. I have commissioned Kaz/George to create a promo video for it, so at least you'll get a little bit of a taste of that song probably a week or two before. And I promise I will start getting on promotions for that show, because it's going to be a good show for us for sure. I thought it was going to be shaping up to be, it had been shaping up to be a better show. There are things that are not going the way that I would have liked them, and that's kind of unfortunate, but it's a situation where it's not my show, and I'm not casting any shade on anybody. I'm saying it's not my show, and so there's a level of, I don't want to say not my problem, because that's not right, but it's not my responsibility to fix these things, which allows me, being me, and in this situation, to really just put my head down and focus in on what I can focus, and that is going to be bringing you the best possible show that Revel 9 can bring you. And I will say, it is, for us as a band, I think this is going to be an exceptionally exceptional performance. We have new music coming at you in this show. We have a brand new cover that I think is either going to blow your minds or leave you with, I don't know what just happened, and more importantly, I don't know why it just happened, which is honestly a completely acceptable reaction to me. We are going to be playing End of Saul at this show. It'll be the first time you've heard that live in about 18 months, maybe even longer, for those of you that even ever heard it at all. So that's our first release. We're going to be playing that at the show. That's why the timing's like that. We also have a brand new song that we're going to be playing that nobody has ever heard before live. So that's always exciting. The last time we did that was All I Need at our last show, and I talked a lot about that at the time. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully you can make it. And I said I didn't feel like talking about any of this anymore, but yet here I am talking about it anymore. So what else is really going on in the world, man? There is a lot. I could spend a lot of time talking about Signalgate and Pete Hegseth and what a douche he is, and how I honestly think that he should be removed, but we all know that's not going to happen, right? As one of the military advisors did say, that if any of his analysts did that, it would be a court-martialable offense, and they would be court-martialed for releasing national security secrets. I mean, don't forget, if you haven't heard about it, I don't know what rock you're under, but if you haven't heard about it, it's super interesting. It's basically all of our high-level security and cabinet and vice president officials were on a group chat in Signal, which is it's like a public app. It could be WhatsApp, Messenger, whatever. Easily hackable, especially since one of the, Tulsi Gabbard, that fool of a person, was actually out of the country, so obviously it's not even secure in American borders. But one of the dudes was in Russia. I mean, Russia is known for hacking American intelligence. It's one of the things they do on purpose. So, there is no reason to think that that's a secure app, especially if you're out of the country, and it's just stupid. But, aside from the mistake that all that was, the goddamn arrogance coming in the response to it, all they're really doing is trying to crap all over this editor from The Atlantic, and The Atlantic is one of the better magazines in the world. I mean, they do real reporting. We don't have a lot of those left, and of course that's the first thing they're going to do. And Hegseth, to his absolute discredit, was the first one to not even admit that he did anything wrong and just completely attack The Atlantic for being a worthless paper and, yellow journalism and all that other stuff, which is completely untrue and completely unfounded. But of course the MAGA universe is just eating that up, because they really love nothing more than just cupping those balls and swallowing all of it when it gets spewed to them from the right. And it's sad. It's getting to the point where it's just pathetic to watch, and that's probably what I'll just sort of talk about here in a minute. But the fact that Hegseth did that instead of just owning it like a man would, he looked right into the camera and lied several times, and then these douche nozzles happened to be due to testify in Congress for something else, which is unfortunate timing for them. Even I can appreciate that. But then they lied right to Congress. Like, that's contempt of Congress. Like, they're not going to hold him to it because the Republicans are just such pussies about this kind of thing. Although there have been a couple of Republican breaks over this issue, which I do find interesting, because there should be more, but at least there's some. But the fact that, like, Tulsi Gabbard actually lied flat out to Congress and said there was no classified information in there, and that Hegseth actually went on and just said there weren't names or dates or times or equipment, and then Carolyn Levitt, the press secretary, basically put out a statement saying that there was no classified information in there. But if the Atlantic, they basically dared the Atlantic to release what they had gotten in the group chat. And they were like, yeah, but it's highly sensitive, so they shouldn't release it. But there is no classified, and the Atlantic is lying and all that other stuff. So, of course, the Atlantic released it, and we found out who was actually lying. And when you can start equating the phrase lying with the Trump administration, it's just, mwah. It's like I had seen something like I think it's a billboard, the simple fact where you can just, in this country right now, saying, like, this guy is a liar or this guy is an idiot, 90% of the people will know who you're talking about without actually saying it. So that's all going on in the world. You should just keep an eye on that, and I will highly recommend to anyone, if they want to watch it's titled The Confederacy of Dunces, which is just brilliant. It's the Jimmy Kimmel monologue from a couple nights ago, and he actually breaks down what happened in a factual manner and then plays clips of all these dunces dealing with the Hillary Clinton emails from a couple years ago saying how she should be in jail and all this other stuff. And it's just point to point to point to point exactly what just happened, proving once and for all it had absolutely nothing to do with Hillary Clinton's emails. It had everything to do with attacking Hillary Clinton, and these people are just so desperate for it that that's what they went for. And of course the hypocrisy is just out on stage for everybody to see, but only people with have a brain care, or people that are just not so dug in that they can actually see the world around them. And honestly, that's kind of what I'm hoping for. We did have a special election in Pennsylvania where a Democratic woman just completely flipped a solidly 15-point red seat in the State House. So hopefully that's a bellwether for what's coming. I really don't know. Also, just while I'm on the topic about this, you're going to hear a lot about Hyundai from Hyundai, a South Korean car company that is investing something like $20 billion into like steel manufacturing into the United States. They said they're going to build a plant in Louisiana so they can start doing steel. And they said flat out it's a way to get around the tariffs that Trump is putting on all these other countries for steel and cars, because he even just said excuse me while I die a second. He even just said he's going to just bump it up to 25%. And I do realize, and I did cover this when I talked about tariffs, that is one of the reasons you do this. You prop up American manufacturing. You prop up national manufacturing when you put on tariffs. It is not supposed to prop up international companies, like stepping through this, like finding their workaround and putting just plants here to get out of that. And the South Korean government did say that they're kind of angling for an exclusion or an exemption on these tariffs. So what you're seeing, ladies and gentlemen, is a goddamn bribe on an international scale. We'll give you $20 billion in manufacturing investment if you cut back on these tariffs that you're going to impose on South Korea. South Korea's got a lot of other stuff going on, especially as China keeps eyeing Taiwan. So they're very worried. Do not be surprised if you see something in the Philippines kind of do this too, or even our partners in Vietnam, because they are really worried about what's going on in the South China Sea. And if you're interested in any of that, I can recommend highly a Johnny Harris video. Just check out Johnny Harris, spelled as it sounds. Johnny Harris is a former New York Times and Vox reporter who does exceptionally good reporting. And he does single issue stuff. It's usually in 20 minutes, and he deep dives it, and all of his partners in Search Party and Tunnel Vision do very much the same thing. So Johnny Harris, not a sponsor, but I really could not recommend him more, especially for the South China Sea information. So all those countries are really worried about what China's trying to do, and they are looking for cover from the United States. And seeing as our idiot in charge just basically called out NATO for thinking that they wouldn't come to our aid if there was ever a crisis, fully ignoring that NATO came to our aid right after 9/11, and all NATO countries either provided direct military support, direct tactical support, or supporting intelligence, or whatever else they could when we invaded Afghanistan, because don't forget, Afghanistan was indeed the responsible country that attacked us on 9/11. It wasn't Iraq. We invaded them anyway, but that was for something different, and that's been proven out and all that other stuff. So keep an eye on all that stuff. It is super important. And I did want to talk about oligarchs, and I just didn't get a chance to do this. I also realized I just said I would talk more about kind of the MAGA moron confidence, and more importantly, the Dunning-Kruger effect that's taking place here, like on glorious or inglorious display, because it is just ridiculous. Like the number of times I hear, like, I just can't talk to certain people because they just dig in, and I'm like, yeah, that's what they do. And keep in mind, and I've said this before publicly, in print, in speech, in person, like, even at its very basic statistical level, right? Like the bell curve that we've all seen, hopefully, at least in math or stats, like intellectually and educationally, there is a bell curve, which means that the average is going to be right here at the top. Now, that average traditionally is like a C or a C plus in school, right? So to be an average, it has to mean that there's equal amounts on the higher side and equal amounts on the lower side. Well, that equal amount on the lower side is definitely feeling empowered because they have been stupid, wrong, and dumb their entire life. I mean, like, as somebody, and this is no brag, as somebody that could really ace a book report and definitely ace a math test and knows a whole lot about geopolitics, I am very often not wrong about stuff that I'm speaking about because I'm intelligent enough to learn stuff and then to know stuff and then to regurgitate it for somebody else. Half of the country cannot do that. They can't discern between lies and BS and what is actually factual and true. Like, it's sad, but it is a necessary component of where we are as a country. Would I like that standard deviation to be a lot closer? Sure. But you still have states in the South that think education is a four-letter word, so they're not going to put any money into it. So those people are getting dumber and dumber and dumber, and therefore more gullible and more gullible and more gullible, and that is the reason for dismantling the Department of Education, which has absolutely nothing to do with curriculum. It's always controlled by the state and local school boards, but it does help the lower and the more at-risk people for poor education with funding, program ideas, and all that, and support, and just direct support. And that is what is going away, because they want to keep you dumb so they can keep lying to you. I don't know if you've ever had somebody that just believes absolutely everything you tell them, like a child. I mean, like when you're telling a child about the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus, man, they are in completely. And I feel like you can realize where that dumb divide sort of splits off, because as soon as you tell them, oh, there is no, well, if there are any kids listen, please turn off the radio. But like when you tell them, like, there is no Santa Claus, most kids will be like, yeah, I kind of knew it. You know what I mean? Because they're intelligent enough to realize what's happening right now is if you tell the MAGA universe that there is no Santa Claus, they're like, no, there isn't. I saw him. And even if it wasn't, it's a Democratic plot, and it's probably Hillary Clinton's fault, definitely Obama's fault. I mean, that's literally the answer you're getting from these people. And I get called out on it all the time on public forums. Like, well, you know, everything you said is just wrong. Like, anybody that knows me knows that everything I said is never wrong. Right? Like, some stuff I say could be wrong, and when it is wrong, I will always tell you, hey, I was wrong about this. I'll apologize about something. I'll edit something or whatever. You know, like, but me being flat out wrong about something, you got to be a special kind of individual to witness that. And again, this is not a brag. This is just a fact. This is just the way it is. So when you're pressed by people that are arguably stupider than you telling you that you're wrong, just remember, and I said this yesterday, just remember that mental retardation has been reclassified in the PC format of intellectual disability. And I have to tell you, intellectual disability is exactly what is going on with the MAGA universe these days, because they're either blind to the truth, don't want to know the truth, or they're too goddamn stupid to know that they don't have it. And that little uplifting pit is how we're going to end the top 20 today, and we're going to get on to some local music. unfortunately, the gang, and I do mean gang because I think there's 34 of them in the band, The Going Rate finally released some new music for you. That was the song I couldn't get over here. It's very hard to start the box without the first song, so that's why I was late today. Not that anyone noticed, not that anyone cared, not that it ever matters even remotely, but I did finally get it over here, and now I've got it for you now. So it's brand new music from The Going Rate. It's called All This Weight. It's on the box.
My spine is crooked from the weight